Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host, and today I'm going to talk to you about this wonderful, wonderful win by Abdul Al Sayed. He's running for the Senate nomination for the Democratic Party in the state of Michigan. And this is perhaps one of the biggest electoral victories for an American Muslim. Uh, Arabs have done much better, especially Christian Arabs. They have even been in the cabinet. People like Ralph Nader have even run for president. But for an American Muslim who's also an Arab of Egyptian origin, to become a party nominee for the position of the Senate is quite unusual, rare. I think it's the first time. So much congratulations to Al Sayed and all the people who worked with him. I used to live in Adrian, Michigan for 5 years, so I'm familiar with some of the people in Dearborn who are supporting him, who are backing him, and so congratulations to all of you. And this was a very close race. I was very surprised. Most predictions were that Al Sayed would probably win by a significant margin, but it just came down to about 14,000 votes. And we will talk about that as to why. But it is a significant win because, like Zohran Mamdani in New York last year, Abdul defeated the establishment of, basically he defeated the democratic establishment of the United States and defeated Israel, Israel's AIPAC lobby, which spent more than 30 to 40 million dollars on his against him to make sure that he was defeated. And on top of that, the rhetoric coming from mainstream media, including the so-called moderate liberal media like CNN and others. I'll give you an example of how the mainstream media, who are supposed to be leaning sympathetic to the Democrats, would, on behalf of Israel, try to sabotage any Democrat who was in any way critical of Israel or AIPAC. And I'll give you an example from the CNN. So just hang on till the end of the show. I will show you some of those videos. But even Republicans, I was listening to Ted Cruz yesterday, called him a communist, called him a jihadist. They have called him a terrorist. And it is just horrendous. There is absolutely no there's no limit how low both Democrats and Republicans can go when they attack Muslims. You say one of that word against some other American ethnic group and you're immediately labeled all kinds of racists, etc. And the kind of things, if you were to stack them up as 100, the things that are said against Muslim candidates who are running for office, if you say 1% of that against, say, Jewish candidates, then you will be labeled anti-Semite. Even when you don't say anything, you are labeled anti-Semite if you are critical of Israel these days. So for what Abdul Al Sayed has done in Michigan is absolutely fantastic. He has broken a glass ceiling. For the first time, we have politicians who are now, in many ways, you can say, are fighting for Americans rather than just fighting for some foreign country. And that is, to me, a very important development. So there are a few things I'm going to do today. I'm trying to find a video for you if I could. So let me show you first who Al Sayed is, okay? And just understand the caliber of this guy. So Al Sayed is both a medical doctor and a PhD holder from Oxford University. He went to University of Michigan, which is in the top universities in the country. And then from there, he went to Oxford as a he got into the medical school, went to Rhodes Scholar, Oxford University, did his PhD there, then came back to Columbia University and got a medical degree. And he chose to work as an epidemiologist rather than just go into the medical field as a practicing doctor. So he is quite accomplished. He has published research articles, but also campaigned. So he's a very talented individual. And to look at his career, I mean, for somebody like Ted Cruz, to call him a jihadist or a communist, and And let me tell you this much. Of all the countries in the West, one of the most socialist, left-leaning countries on earth is Israel. Israel provides free healthcare for all. That is an important point. Remember that. And we fund a lot of what Israel provides for its citizens. But they are not called communists or socialists. But if anybody on slightly on the left of center here in the United States were to pronounce that we need to take care of those who are marginalized, or the state should help those who are in trouble health-wise, or provide free education or free healthcare, you are immediately labeled a communist. But when the state is asked to bail out foreign countries and spend billions of dollars to help foreign countries, there's no problem. Billions of dollars to save big corporations, billions of dollars in subsidies to large corporations. All of that is okay. That is state-sponsored funding of corporations is not a problem. But if you try to provide free healthcare or free education, then you are in deep, deep trouble. The second thing that I want to show you is very basically what are the key elements of Abdullah al-Sayed's top 5 issues. Number one, big issue. This is what he's campaigning on. This is what he wrote a book on. He's an epidemiologist who cares about public health policy. He's an expert on public health. And so he campaigned on Medicare for all. For those who are watching from overseas, Medicare for all is the America provides a certain funding, you can say, or insurance from the federal government to people who are above 65 years of old, and those who are poor, and some needy people who qualify for Medicare. It covers about 80% of your healthcare cost, and 20% of it is covered by Medicaid, which is provided by states. But not everybody is eligible for it. So if you're a 40-year-old person, if you don't have a job, and if you don't have money, you can't afford healthcare. It becomes phenomenally expensive. Before the Democrats passed Obamacare, about little more than 10 years ago, there was a time when nearly more than 12% of the country's population, close to 40 million people, were without healthcare. And let me tell you this, medical care is so expensive in the United States. If you don't have health insurance, you can go bankrupt like this. So his main issue is providing health care. We are living at a moment where there are two Americas. There's one America which is very rich with its per capita income of close to $180,000. And then you have 50% of Americans who are struggling to make ends meet. Their per capita income is less than $30,000. So half of America would probably be the poorest country in the West, and the other half is the richest country on planet Earth. So we are trying to worry about them, and that's what Al-Sayed is saying, that we need to provide health care. Look, when we talk about human development and the Human Development Index, you measure basically three things: level of education, level of healthcare, and economy and GDP per capita. And right now, the American economy is essentially neglecting both education as well as healthcare. And so it's quite laudable. That is why Al-Sayed is winning, because of his number one issue, which is Medicare for all. This is the most important plank on which Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez runs, Bernie Sanders runs for this, Zohran Mamdani. This is the agenda of Democratic Socialists. This is the agenda of Progressive Democrats. Jayapal runs on this issue. There are many, many people, and there are close to 100 Progressive Democrats now in the U.S. Congress. His second big agenda is money out of politics. Now, this is phenomenal. So, for example, all are supposed to be equal citizens in this country. Can you imagine if I wanted to talk to Donald Trump, what are the chances that I can text him or call him? Zero. But Elon Musk, he can probably call him, and Trump will pick him up, because Elon Musk spent close to $250 million on Trump's campaign. So what's happening is that with the growing number of rich people in this country, they have an inordinate amount of influence on American politics. So politics and policies are being dictated by very rich people and corporations. They can spend hundreds of millions of dollars in elections. why do we call Donald Trump's foreign policy as Israel first? He promised never to do what he's doing with Iran right now. He said, I will never start a regime change war. I will never start a never-ending war. I will keep America first. But he goes into a war which is clearly Israel first, nothing to do with America. American intelligence said very clearly that there was no imminent threat to the United States. Why is he doing that? Because he wants pro-Israel lobby money. He receives hundreds of millions of dollars from Miriam Adelson and others, and so his policies are distorted. And it's very difficult. You cannot win an election in the United States today without a lot of money. In fact, sometimes I jokingly say, I don't say that we have elections in America. We have auctions in America. We have an auction of the White House. You have to come to the table with at least $1 billion if you want to buy the White House for a few years or kind of lease it for 4 years or 8 years. So money is very important. There are some legal issues with Citizens United. I don't want to go there. But that was his second most idea. We need to get corporate money out. When corporate money is involved in elections, and policymakers and politicians depend on corporate money for their political futures, then they make policies which help corporations and not the ordinary people. That is Abdul al-Said's top 5 issues, second most important issues, and I think this will become the number one issue now going forward for the main election, which is in November. The third project was that he wanted to bring a lot more support for those who are poor, money in your pocket, the same kind of agenda that Zohran Mamdani was pushing in New York, rent control, fighting inflation, and trying to ameliorate the problems of affordability in ordinary American lives. He also advocate for strong labor and union rights, because Michigan has for long been a manufacturing state and unions have played a role. Today, labor unions have very little influence on policy or politics. He was endorsed by the auto labor union in Michigan. So that's where his socialism comes up, where he talks about collective bargaining, etc., for the labor vis-a-vis corporations. And finally, he talks about ending military aid to Israel, and he does not want American taxpayers' money to be spent on genocides in Gaza or wars in Ukraine and endless wars in the Middle East. I mean, the U.S. has been in war for more than 10 years in Iraq, for more than 20 years in Afghanistan, and now in Iran. God knows how long we will be there. So we are spending literally billions and billions of dollars and sending billions of dollars to Israel. For those who understand here in the U.S. that the federal subsidy for Obamacare expired, and so there are millions of Americans now whose cost of health insurance has gone quadruple, and they could probably collapse. Their finances must be in dire straits. And the cost of renewing that subsidy was only $30 billion, and Republicans refused to subsidize health care for the poorer people in America. It would have cost just $30 billion. And guess what we did? Joe Biden, on his way out, gave close to $18 billion to Israel. Donald Trump, since he came in, has given $12 billion to them to fight their wars in Gaza. And not only that, the U.S. itself has been engaging and spending billions of dollars. We may have spent close to $40 billion in the war with Iran so far. And we have spent more than $200 billion in the war in Ukraine. And he is against that. As a senator, he will probably vote against these things. So these were the 5 agendas. And talking about money, let me show you how contentious this election became with AIPAC and Israeli lobby coming here and trying to defeat him. It's a good business for the Israeli project that you spend a few $100 million in the United States and ensure that people who are more loyal to Israel than to the United States are elected to the Congress and the Senate, and then they give billions and billions of dollars to Israel. So it's an extremely profitable exercise. So you have people like Chuck Schumer, who is the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, who says, my sole goal as the leader of the Democratic Party in the Socialists, to make sure that the left remains loyal, supports Israel. Ted Cruz said the only reason why he ran for the Senate is to protect Israel. You have people like John Fetterman from Pennsylvania, a senator. He's all about Israel, Israel, Israel. Nothing about about Pennsylvania or the poor or anything else. So how does this happen? It happens because they sell their souls to AIPAC. Now, this lady, Haley Stevens, who's running against Abdul al-Sayed, she was only able to raise $9 million for her campaign. Abdul raised $12 million for his campaign. So he's clearly more popular. He's raising more money also locally. But guess how much money came from outside? Only $7 million for al-Sayed and $62 million for Haley Stevens, and more than 30 million clearly associated with the Israeli lobby, AIPAC, and a lot of other money is also coming in directly by Democrats, funders who are worried that America's policies towards Israel in the Middle East are changing. So there was $70 million versus $19 million. They outspend him, and money is very important in American politics. There are people who can win elections by just putting ads out there or basically flooding the social media and the television and news media with their advertisements, with their agenda, and they can hire consultants and they can hire lots of people to work for them on the ground. So money speaks. You cannot win elections without money. It's very rare. Apparently, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez defeated a major Democratic leader in New York, and she was outspent like 17:1. That is unbelievable. Here it is basically 7:2. So close to triple, more than 3 times, you can say. But this is an important part because al-Sayed defeated AIPAC. And so it has an inspirational effect on people, other people who say, oh my God, I can't run for office. I have such great ideas to improve education, but they'll come and make this litmus test. Are you loyal to Israel? And if you're not loyal to Israel, then you can't be anybody in America. Because the whole purpose of America is to protect not just Israel. Okay? Yes, Israel has a right to exist like any other country. And all people in the world have a right to self-determination, and therefore the Palestinians also have a right to exist. When people raise these issues, they create this whole existential fear to justify and essentially create America as a national security fortress whose sole purpose is to fight for Israel. And that's why we've been fighting these wars. These massive wars that we have fought in Iraq and Iran are the same, to protect Israel. But anyway, I want to show you a particular video to give you an idea of how these things work. So here is a video of a CNN interview.
Both of the Democratic candidates, Haley.
So she's talking about, listen to her carefully as to what she's saying is the most important thing.
So there's one question that really gets at the heart of what is dividing Democrats in the critical Michigan Senate primary. Does Israel have a right to exist?
So she's saying this, look at this. She says the most important question in the Democratic primary is, does Israel, this is in Michigan, does Israel have a right to exist? No question about, do American citizens have a right to health care? Do American young people have a right to get a job? Do they have a right to free education? No. I mean, there is nothing. Marco Rubio just announced that if anybody criticizes Israel, they will not get U.S. visa. If you're an international student and if you are applying for a U.S. visa, you will not get it if you criticize Israel. You can trash America as much as you like. We will bring you to America, give you full funding, and you can have a great life in America, but don't criticize Israel. That is what Marco Rubio just announced a few months ago. So this is it. This is the criteria for serving in American Parliament.
I had the chance to press both of the Democratic candidates, Haley Stevens, she's an incumbent congresswoman, and Abdul El Sayed, who is the progressive. I talked to both of them here in the arena over the past week.
Do you believe Israel has a right to exist?
So, Casey, AIPAC's become a big issue in this election because AIPAC's already spent $30 million in this election. They're by far the biggest spender in the race. Now, the question about a right to exist is interesting because nobody's ever asked me whether or not I believe Palestine has a right to exist. Every single president who served has said that they believe in a two-state solution. Israel exists. The question is whether or not we want a politics where our money is sent over to Israel to do genocide and apartheid instead of investing in our own kids.
You say it exists, but does it have a right to?
Like, what is
didn't
the
say
big
that.
deal about this right to exist? Like, what does it mean? And I will tell you what it means. What they are trying to say is that if Israel has a right to exist, then it has right to do whatever it needs to do for what it thinks is a threat to its existence. So because Palestinians are alive and Palestinians want a Palestinian state, that is a threat to Israel. So we commit a genocide and kill them all. Is that what she's trying to say? It's ridiculous. Whose rights were destroyed when the Soviet Union expired? It doesn't exist as a state. Sikkim used to be an independent country. It is not. So this whole idea, they never asked this question about any states. Does Greenland have a right to exist? It is so fascinating. They become brainless. They know it's a stupid question. They know that it's a litmus test. If you want to be anybody in America, you have to pledge allegiance to unlimited, uncritical support of Israel. That is what this is.
Said the question of Israel's existence is not a question. I'm not going to play this gotcha game about whether or not it has a right to exist. The question ultimately is about whether or not we want a politics that dignifies.
You're not going to play the
equal rights
gotcha
to
game, but
peace,
you're not
dignity, and
going to say
self-determination.
you think Israel has a right to
Well,
exist.
my question, Casey, I think the question we all ought to ask is, does everybody have equal rights to peace, dignity, and self-determination? That's Jewish.
So for example, they will not ask questions like, is there a genocide happening in Gaza? Why wouldn't she ask that question of Stevens? Does Israel have the right to kill 20,000 children? She's not going to ask that question. Why not? Will you support Israel as it kills thousands of children in Gaza and prevents the Palestinians from having basic fundamental rights? It's become an apartheid state. There are different rules and different laws for Palestinians and different rules and different laws for Israelis. Palestinians have no rights. Those who live in West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem. It exposes the moral corruption and absolute emptiness. And the sad part is she thinks if she does this, I'm sure she also knows that this is stupid what she's doing. But she knows that this is the path for her rise. When Wolf Blitzer retires, maybe she will get a bigger show because she understands that the most important thing for the media is to support Israel. There are lots of similar issues that are continuing. I just want to give you an example of the video. Haley Stevens, I was looking for the video. I'm not able to find it. Haley Stevens was saying that I will continue to fight for Israel. Israel comes to me in my dreams. This is how people talk about Israel in order to get votes in America. It is astonishing. And some of the major people in American politics, including Senator Chris Coons from Delaware, obviously Chuck Schumer, the governor Whitmer of Michigan, and the person Peter Gray, who vacated this Senate seat, all of them endorsed Haley Stevens, and who was defeated. So listen, one more.
He didn't like, voted to raise prescription drug.
So this is the agenda. This is a very important question because one of the arguments that so-called smart and sensible Democrats were making was, look, fine, al-Sayed wins the primary, but he cannot win main election because the Republicans will paint him as, oh, you're a Muslim. Oh, you are a terrorist. Oh, you are a jihadist. Oh, you are a communist. And so we will not be able to win. So we need somebody who is not a Muslim, basically. That's the point that they want to make. But the coded language is that we don't want someone who will be labeled social democrat. They said the same thing about Mamdani. And Mamdani came and beat this. All of these people, these so-called Democrats, Democrats used to be the party of the working class. Now they have become the party of anybody who has money in their pockets, domestic or foreign. Domestic or foreign. They will put Ukraine's flags and Israeli flags all over their social media, etc. So pledging loyalty to foreign countries or pledging loyalty to corporations, taking a lot of money, especially for pharmaceutical industries, from the big pharma, from the tech companies, etc. When Kamala Harris was running for president against a billionaire, she raised more money from the corporate world than Donald Trump did. Why would billionaires and millionaires and corporations give more money to Kamala Harris? Because they care about human rights? Because they care about democracy? No, because they know that Democrats cater more to at least the establishment Democrats. That is why you are seeing the rise of social democrats or progressive Democrats because they have stopped serving their constituency. You are running for an office in Michigan, you don't dream about Michiganders, you dream about Israel. You're running for office in Michigan, you don't have as your number one priority taking care of health care for Michiganders, but for some foreign country overseas. That is why the Democratic Party is in such a crisis. And that is why somebody like Donald Trump beat them thoroughly in 2024. I mean, imagine 34 indictments against Donald Trump. The man is just horrible, horrible, horrible person. A liar to the core, corrupt. Look at the amount of corruption he's brought to the White House. It's unbelievable. He's made close to $2 billion as president and some 20,000 trading. He's doing all kinds of stock market manipulation with his policies, etc. Now he's charging $100,000 so that you can see his tweets a few seconds before others. Can you imagine that? Because you know that if you see his Truth Social post, then you can play the stock market and make more money before others do. Already apparently 6 people or 6 companies have paid $100,000 to Donald Trump to see his Truth Social post before. So this corrupt guy who inspired an insurgency in 2021 against his own country beat the Democrats in all battleground states. He just wiped the floor with the Democrats. For what? Because A, they supported the genocide in Gaza for 14 months. Joe Biden kept saying, I have ironclad support for Israel. Kept sending money, weapons, and most average Americans have an innate sense of justice. They're mostly decent people, and they did not buy this bullshit from them, of this right to exist business. Right to exist is a code word to right to massacre, right to kill. And so the Democrats lost nearly everything. Right now the Republicans control the Senate, the House, the White House, and the Supreme Court. And she's talking about electability. Well, like, what are Democrats winning? Anyway, so this is the main argument from Democrats who want to pretend that they're not doing this for Israel. Then they come up with this argument, especially people like Van Jones.
If you're the nominee, Mike Rogers and the Republicans are going to try to label you as a democratic socialist. You're going to say you're not. But I'm asking, help us understand, what's the difference between your version of capitalism and their version of democratic socialism?
You know, Jen, the irony of this is that they're already trying to label my opponent, Haley Stevens, a socialist too. This is what they label any Democrat who runs against them. Now Donald Trump is calling everybody a communist. We're so concerned about what they're going to say about us that we forget that we also have mouths and can talk about them. Let's talk about Mike Rogers. Mike Rogers is the worst kind of corporatist. He is so bought off by corporations that he made $14 million. He doesn't want to tell us how he made, except for he was likely trading on his relationships in government. When he did serve in the Congress, He never saw a corporate PAC check he didn't like, voted to raise prescription drug prices I don't know how many times, helped to architect the opioid epidemic. This is a guy who we're going to beat up and down the state because the dude is bought off as hell. And I think it's time for us to stop being so worried about what they're going to say about us and start using our mouths to talk about what's wrong with them. Money out of politics is about ending a future where politicians like Mike Rogers can bring in money from corporations like DTE and Blue Cross and think that somehow they get to dictate a future that's better for those corporations than they are for the people. Money in your pocket is about standing with unions that he sought to crush. It's about taxing billionaires that he wants to protect. It's about keeping our money here, even though he wants to send it in the form of tanks and bombs to give giveaways to weapons manufacturers elsewhere where that money does harm.
So this is the whole argument that, oh, now that you won the primaries, we will not be able to beat the Republicans because the Republicans are going to call Democrats as socialists. Republicans have no ethics. They are calling him a jihadi. They're calling him a communist. What an idiot they are. All of these people, they went to Harvard, people like Ted Cruz, and I don't even want to mention the others. Israel is far more socialist than any other Western country out there. They have kibbutz and communes in Israel, free healthcare, free education for everybody inside Israel. And to aspire for that in America, to have in America what we subsidize in Israel, is to become a socialist. I mean, these guys are so crazy about Netanyahu, an war criminal who cannot go to most countries in the world today. He will be arrested for war crimes. That guy gets to come to White House 8 times. So why don't they ask him? Why don't they label him as socialist? It's rubbish. This is a cop-out. So will al-Said win in November? It's going to be far more difficult than this, because Rogers is a very strong candidate. He has lots and lots of money. Donald Trump will be backing him. Donald Trump won Michigan in 2024, partly because Kamala Harris would absolutely not acknowledge what was going on in Gaza. And so she lost a lot of support from people who were worried about the war in Gaza, the genocide in Gaza. So al-Said's task is double. He will have to beat Republicans, and he will have to beat Democrats, and he will have to beat Israel lobby, because AIPAC, which spent close to $30-40 million, will now shift and support Rogers. So all the money that was pro-Israel will now be going to Rogers to defeat al-Said, and there will be corporate money backing up, because Rogers doesn't care for health care for all Michiganders or free education for Michiganders, etc. He doesn't care about labor union rights. In fact, he's opposed to it. He's going to fight against them. So this is what is going to happen in November. If Michigan people from Michigan want somebody who works for them, then they should go out there and vote for al-Said. But if they want somebody who will fight for Israel's right to do whatever, and will fight for corporations, and will support Donald Trump, then they can vote for Mike Rogers, or they can vote for AIPAC or whatever. So this is an important battle. Just winning the primary is an important achievement itself. It puts him on the roadmap. He ran for governor, which he lost a couple of years ago. But what is interesting is that people like Mamdani and people like Abdul al-Sayed are setting a new benchmark on basically grassroots campaigning and grassroots supports. And these are people who are America first. This is genuinely America first politicians. Since Mamdani has become mayor of New York, the crime rate has gone down. He has put a ceiling on rent. Literally hundreds of thousands of people have received relief from rent. He is bringing in basically grocery stores in neighborhoods which were deserts, no place to buy food. You have to take a bus or a train to go and buy food. And so he's doing phenomenal work. He's not thinking of how many bombs can I make and how many people can we kill, etc. in foreign countries. No, that's not what is driving him. It's the exact opposite. Who is deserving of help? Who is suffering as a result of the crisis of affordability in America? And all this talk, remember, all this talk about Israel, etc., is only because the media and AIPAC-funded Democrats keep attacking people like Mamdani and al-Said for. Otherwise, there is no, if the media was not so committed to just talking about Israel, like they don't even ask him, how will you make sure that there is Medicare for all? Why do we need Medicare for all? Why doesn't she ask that what will happen to all the people in Michigan who can't afford health care, who are going bankrupt because of the high cost? It's not just high cost of health care, the high cost of rent, and everything else because of this war in Iran. Gas has gone up, and so people are spending thousands of dollars more on just subsisting in this country. None of these bothers these media people, whether it's CNN or does Israel have the right to exist? That is the most important thing for America these days. It is astonishing as to how profoundly the Israeli lobby has colonized the mind, the morality, and the consciousness of American politicians. It's just stunning, and the media. Anyway, congratulations to Abdul al-Said. He has shown that regardless of what the elite Americans are, I mean, this is the Epstein generation of leaders that we have in our government. The American people are worried, the American people are suffering, and the American people can recognize a genuine article. That's why we have elections. That's why democracy is important and must be saved and preserved. Otherwise, those who are powerful will rob this country blind for interests which are all special. So people like al-Said are saving. I think there is a revolution taking place in America today. Bernie Sanders is the godfather of this revolution, but the main person out there is Mamdani, and it is very important for Mamdani to continue to deliver on the promises that he made. And those promises will be critical to the success of the democratic socialist movement in this country. It will save the Democratic Party, and it will save America. Thank you for watching Conversations. If you have not already subscribed to this channel, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share this video with your socio-political network. Until next time, I'm your host, Muqtadar Khan. Take care. And once again, all the best to Abdul al-Said. Inshallah, you're going to win in November.